This is Greg Canty here, and welcome to the Win Happy podcast. Stay tuned for interesting chats with interesting people about winning their lives and being happy at the same time. This show has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. Thanks for listening. On today's podcast, I chat with coach and psychotherapist Noreen Coomey about getting from being happily pissed off to a place where we're winning happy. Maybe there are stresses that you need to address, and maybe these warrant some changes in your life. We discuss anxiety, work stress, the effects of COVID on all of us, and why February could be the best time to make some changes. Let's hear from Noreen. Noreen Coomey, a big welcome to the Win Happy podcast. How are you keeping?
I'm very well, Greg. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome as we find ourselves at the beginning of another year.
That's so true. And what will it bring?
Exactly, and lots of opportunity and all of that. So you're a coach and a psychotherapist, and even around the word coaching, I know you use some specific words about being a transition and a transformation coach. We'll have a conversation about that in a while.
Okay.
And I know at the beginning of a year, we're all making our New Year's resolutions. Sometimes I call them revolutions. So that's why when we connected, I said, I need to talk to this woman because I know a lot of the advice and a lot of the guidance and everything else will be of huge interest to the listeners. But before we get into all of that, what I do on all of these chats is I like for the listener to get a chance to get to know you and your path to what you're doing today. So I'm going to ask you a question. Noreen, who the hell are you and where did you come from?
Who the hell are you? Well, I'm Noreen Coomey, and as you said, I'm a coach and psychotherapist, and we just discovered that I work out of Ballincollig, and you live there, so that's a kind of a connection as already. And I suppose my claim to fame earlier in my life was that I was a mother of 5. We used to have I lived in a little village called Crooktown, which is near Bellnablaw, as you know. And of course, today is the signing of, it's the 100th anniversary of the signing of the treaty with Michael himself. And I lived there when my children were young. And
where are you from yourself?
I'm from Clonakilty myself.
Okay,
but I left there at a very young age.
Were you farming folk or were you townies?
Yes, we were. Yeah, and that's one of the things we used to have to go to the well for water, and it was uphill on the way back, so it wasn't very exciting for a child.
Did you enjoy growing up on a farm?
Not really. No, it was very cold and mucky and all kinds of stuff.
And this is a question I ask a lot of people, that as a young child, living in that farm, would you have been aware of the good years and the bad years? When things were good in the farm, prices were good, or it was a tough time, or the season was bad? Because in a way, it's a little business, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. And I remember, as the years went on, my mother saying that you'd nearly want a college degree to do all the paperwork that was involved in it. It started to become very much like a business.
Yeah. And did you feel that? Did you feel that as a child?
Probably not. I suppose I wasn't that interested in the economics of it.
Yeah. But would you have had a sense that the success of what your dad and your mum did put bread on the table?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I probably was a bit superficial about it. I didn't really worry where it came from.
Yeah.
I suppose in our heads it was mother put bread on the table. She was baking all the time.
And farming was just something that your dad did, and that was it. Were you dragged into it?
She did as well. She did the milking.
Okay, and
I suppose that was the biggest thing, because you had to have that done properly and send it off, and that was the main thing that was being done.
And there were no days off as such. The cows needed to be milked every day.
Absolutely, yes. I remember she wouldn't go to the seaside with us, because all the work would be there when she'd come back.
Yeah.
She'd send me off with all the smallies to And they'd all get sunburnt and everything.
And were you dragged into the farm work from time to time?
Yes, and especially, I suppose, with cows, because they're so big and they just go the way they want to go. You're trying to stop them.
So, for yourself as a young woman growing up, what was in your head? Was it to get as far away from all of that as possible, or what was it? What was the plan?
It was. Yes, I remember. I used to say I'd never marry a farmer because you'd have hayseeds and everything in the bed.
You're a very practical person, Noreen.
Well, yes, I think I am. And even my own children would say that, that if there's a problem there, we'll solve it. That's the kind of thinking I have.
And tell me, the young girl in school, the young Noreen, when the teacher lost your attention for whatever reason, where did Noreen disappear to in her head?
Oh, Lord, I'm probably out somewhere walking by the sea or something like that, which is a big thing that I have. And
of course, in West Cork, you're spoiled, aren't you? Because
yes,
it's everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Does that make a difference to people?
Oh, being by the sea?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I suppose science now has proved that the negative ions or whatever it is, that it's so good for our well-being. And I see a lot of people are sea swimming all the time now, which I intend to start, but I'm not very good with the cold.
Yeah, my daughter took that up, I think, halfway through last year.
Oh.
And she suffers with lupus and, a lot of kind of ailments that go with all of that stiffness in her limbs and all that kind of thing, and heavy-duty medication. And she would absolutely say that she's been transformed since she's been doing the sea swimming. So if you're in your togs any day near Myrtleville, you might just bump into her.
Oh, yes. That's a great spot for it, isn't it?
Yeah.
They've been doing it down there for years, I think, before it caught on anywhere else.
Yeah, she was doing that now a lot of days, even before going to work. So, Noreen, your career path, what did you end up doing?
I stayed at home for about 20 years, mothering. Then
did you enjoy that?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I suppose I was quite young when I had my children, and I suppose I kind of grew up with them, and they're all great. And yes, and as well as that, then I did a lot of community stuff, and we had the Crookstown Women's Group, which I started up with another few ladies, and we opened a play school, and we put on a lot of activities for the mothers, and a lot of people had come into the area and knew mothers, so it was good from that point of view. And then we used to have swimming classes. We used to go to the Nanway for swimming classes, and the bus driver used to call us the Bikini Brigade. And then I was a scout leader as well for a while. So then when my youngest was about 10, I decided I'd go back to work because they were quite independent at that stage. And I decided I wanted to go back. I wanted to go to college because I hadn't I'd gone straight into work from secondary school. And I went to what is now MTU, and I did an honours degree in counselling and psychotherapy.
So it was the old CIT, isn't it? Or
that's right.
The regional tech even before that again.
The regional tech, that's right.
What drew you to that particular course?
I suppose when the children were growing up, I probably read a lot of self-help books, and I was always interested in I suppose, in human behaviour and psychology and that kind of stuff, and what makes people tick. And then when I went to the CIT, it was, we learned an amazing amount of stuff, and all the theories and everything, person-centred and Gestalt and attachment theories, personality theories, and those are different ones. Then you get more interested in a certain aspect of them and why people behave the way they do, and how, I suppose, as well, how your upbringing has an effect on you. And again, I suppose, traumatic events, because there was a lot of death in my family growing up. I lost two of my sisters, and then my grandparents, that would have been common enough. But that it would have, yeah, it would have an effect. And I suppose I had with loss is a thing that I had to do a lot of work on. When I was training, we had to do our own counselling as well, and I had to do a lot of work around bereavement and loss for myself.
Did that change you, Noreen? Were they older or younger sisters?
They were younger, yeah. One was a cot death when she was very young, and then my other sister died in an airplane accident, and she was only 23. That had definitely had an effect on the family overall.
And how about you? How would you describe it?
Well, I suppose I was lucky in that my children were young and I had the kind of distraction of that, but it was a big loss for me because she would have been nearest in age to me, and like we were good friends and everything, and it was hard to, I suppose, come to terms with it. And I think I kept myself busy. That's probably what I had to be busy anyway.
Is that a good thing to do?
I think in a way it is. I suppose this is what we do. We either kind of wallow in it or else we just get on with it. And I suppose I know at the time I got on with it. And then I suppose when I was training then for the psychotherapy degree, I did a lot of work around it myself. So I suppose I have come to terms with it now.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm just interested to know that, like, my dad passed around this time 4 years ago. And I think around this time, I always feel a little bit wobbly.
Absolutely. And that's understandable because we forget that all the experts say that grief is a legitimate feeling for the loss you have endured.
Yeah, totally. And even, I think it's kind of a time of the year when you're feeling a little bit blue anyway. And obviously the weather and everything else, it doesn't help. And you know, I was just trying to figure out how much of it is down to Dad's passing and that weighing on me at this time. Now, I don't think about it all of the time or whatever, but I just wonder. It's hard to figure out 100%.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's good that you're aware of it and that you know it may be impacting.
Yeah. So you finished the course. Did you get into work straight away after that, or how did that go for you?
I did it part-time. We had to take clients in the third year, so I actually got the room in Ballincollig at that time and started up there, and it's actually still the same. I'm still in the same place there.
Okay. But you were working at the time as well, were you?
Oh, I was, and I was working full-time when I was in college as well. When I look back on it now, I don't know how I did it.
Yeah, but we do, don't we? We bring all this on ourselves and we keep ourselves very busy and everything. Now, I read a post on your LinkedIn profile and it struck me with the content of it. And I think you were talking about pulling your hair out in a job, that you'd taken on a role that was it 3 rungs above you or something?
Yes, absolutely.
And now, in between the lines, I thought, okay, she's had a meltdown. And you packed up. Could you describe that whole scenario to me?
Oh, gosh. I suppose, I can't be naming names or anything. Of course, yeah. But it was just the circumstances. I'd love to know. I think what happened, I suppose I kind of got roped into this position where it was, some of the work was 3 grades above mine. And then there seemed to be an awful lot of, it was kind of a contract for another institution, let's say. There was an awful lot of chiefs, all chiefs and not enough Indians. And I had requested help. And it wasn't happening. And then I had the chance to take early retirement. So I decided to take it. And I suppose when I look at it now, and that's why I did put it into information, because there are a lot of people that are in that situation. And it's only afterwards when you look at it and you go, oh my God, did I actually keep going in that for so long without doing anything? And then about a year later, there was a kind of a reunion, and one of the girls said to me, there's 3 people doing your job now.
How long did that window last, that window of intense pressure?
It was about 2 years, I'd say.
Yeah. And how long were you in that role in total?
Oh, I was there. I was there probably for about 4 years.
Okay.
It was just that the change, and then kind of, and I see people doing that all the time. Hearing more and more work, and I don't know, is it like you think you're Superman or something? And I think as well, you're left to it if you do. I remember speaking to a client I was coaching, and I said to him, what's the solution here? Is a similar position now, just continually putting his hand up to take on more work. And I said, what's the solution here? And he said, I probably have to sit on my hands. And he came back the following week, and I said, how did you get on? He said, I actually had to sit on my hands, stop myself volunteering for more when I knew I had too much on. So whatever it is about us that we can't say no, I think that's the problem there.
But you're the good, obliging person.
Absolutely.
In the workplace, you like to please, you like to praise, well done. Yes. And the person who did well will get the other job, and you want to put the hand up. You want to be the one that volunteers, the one that'll solve the problems. And you will get the extra workload as a result. And as long as there's hours in the day and you don't crack up, it'll just keep on going. Yeah. And in that pressurized work situation, did it have a toll on you?
Oh, it did. Yeah. I got English twice in the time I was there, and I couldn't understand it, because I suppose I would have been, healthy enough. And a lot of people I work with now, they come with, because they have had physical ailments, and the doctor says, well, that's stress, so you better talk to somebody.
Okay. So your body is a nice little storage container for all the crap that's going on. There comes a point when it'll give you the two fingers.
Exactly. And you don't even know it, because I remember being on a course or something at work, and they gave us a little questionnaire about stress, and you had to tick out the ABCD, you had to tick. And then I got a very high score, and I said, how's that happening?
I must be stressed.
Well, I didn't know. I had to do this test to tell me I was stressed.
Yeah. Obviously, the shingles and whatever else was going on was your body's way of telling you, Noreen, this ain't right, whatever's going on.
Yes.
Were there other signs? I mean, your husband and your kids and your buddies and all that kind of thing?
That's probably another thing. I was probably hiding it as well, that I was so stressed, probably irritable towards people, but probably hid it that I was stressed. And so I suppose it's like your questions now are probably like, oh Lord, look, this is what I'm not used to being questioned about myself. I'm usually the one asking the questions, but it's like,
I'm the therapist today, Noreen.
You're doing very well.
There's an expression I kind of use with people, or maybe it's with my own self-therapy. You can arrive at a place where I would describe yourself as being happily pissed off, where you are pissed off, but you're happy in it because you have your own house, you have your own routines, you go through the door of that workplace where people know you, everything is very familiar. You are pissed off, but there's a bit of familiarity in it, and that's, I guess in a way, the reason I'm talking to you about this is I know we're going to have a conversation about transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when everything is nice and comfortable, you can be happy in it, even though those circumstances aren't right.
Yes. Yeah, because there is a saying in therapy that the neurotic loves his symptom. And we get into a rut as well, I suppose, and it's hard to get out of it then.
But there's comfort in the rut, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
In a funny sort of a way.
Yes, there is.
So what I want to do now is I want to figure out how we get from that happily pissed off scenario to winning happy. It is the Win Happy podcast after all, Noreen.
Of course, yes. Somebody had a saying, think of it as manure. Obviously, coming from a farming background, I had mentioned manure. Think of it as manure. You can only grow from it.
Exactly. And the better quality shite, the better, I presume. So you mentioned again in that article that you obviously did a major change. You decided you were going to take retirement and choose a different career path. But you mentioned as well that transition actually wasn't that easy. Could you describe what wasn't easy
Yes.
about it. And
Yes, I think a lot of it is when you're your own boss and you're the one responsible for bringing in the money and all that. And I think that is a bit scary. So it's the change. It's dealing with change. We don't like it. Did you know that, Greg? We have 3 brains.
we have a few of them.
Well, we definitely have 3. And I suppose the good thing about it is that neuroscience has found all this information now about how the part of our brain that I think it lights up when you're stressed, and then another part lights up when you're happy. So they can see what's going on in your brain. And this gives great credibility to coaching and psychotherapy. And the 3 brains, have we time to talk about the 3 brains?
Go on. Let's.
So we have what we call the reptile brain, which is the lizard brain, which is the really old brain, fight or flight brain. And that's about 250 million years old.
That's the warrior, the hunter-gatherer, and all of that.
And it wants order and physical security and has no interest in learning anything and has no interest in changing anything. And then we have the old mammal, which I call the chicken brain because it's like a headless chicken a lot of the time. And it's all about emotions and jumping to conclusions. And this wants to avoid all sorts of pain and doesn't want new information. So it just wants to stay. And that's probably the part that says what did you call it?
Happily pissed off.
Pissed off. That's your chicken brain. And then we have the new brain, which is less than 3 million years old and wants to learn things and wants to solve problems and all of that. But unfortunately, if we are in a sort of a crisis situation, it goes offline and the old brain take over and you can't even think logically. So that's probably the state I was in.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What have I done? Given up my job and here I am now trying to keep myself occupied.
And I guess the problem is, Noreen, as a human being, you're just trying to exist with a storm of thoughts in your head.
Yes.
And you've no ability to separate them or whatever.
Yes. See, what happened was we used to be swinging out of the trees. And then when we came down and walked on the ground, our brains got bigger. And apparently people who lived by the sea or by the water, they had bigger brains because they were eating fish. And you've probably heard that a fish is good for your brain. But unfortunately, then we started thinking, and we were good at it, and we invented all sorts of things like the wheel and that kind of thing. But then we started to believe what we were thinking, and we started making up things like politics, advertising, religion, and all this kind of thing. But we started to think our thoughts were real, and this is where we have the problem now. Whereas the thought really is only like a sentence in your head that's passing through, and if you don't latch onto it, you'll be all right. This is easier said than done.
Well, there's a guy called Donald Trump who convinced, I don't know how many million people, up to 70 or 80 million people, that, yeah, it was a lie. And the more I say it, the more it's going to be the way.
Absolutely. And I suppose we have a lot of that. There's a lot of, I won't go, I don't know, but I could go that route. That's kind of the Homer Simpson thing,
Yeah. Okay, so you've gone through that kind of big career change and you found yourself in practice and I suppose developing your own skill set and your experience and everything. What exactly do you do? What's the range of work that you do, Noreen?
I work with basically people who have a problem, who've tried to solve it on their own without success, and they now need help. And this is the big issue, really, is that people are slow to ask for help. And I remember saying to my doctor, you only send them in to me when they're at rock bottom. And he said, well, they only come to me when they're at rock bottom. And I use an integration of therapies for counseling, which is like person-centered Gestalt and mostly solution-focused brief therapy, because people want to see some change and kind of see it fairly quickly. And then I work with an employee assistance program as well that gives people maybe 6 to 8 weeks counseling, and they want to see an improvement in that time as well. So the main things are anxiety. Anxiety is huge. I'd say 60 to 70% of the clients I have have are suffering from anxiety. And anxiety is all about the future, the question is that you could nearly be sure they're asking is, what if it goes wrong? What if I don't succeed? What if? And all the time. And then they're using up all their energy worrying about the future and focusing on it and being fixated by it. So that's a huge thing. And I suppose going to the win happy thing, people want to be happier. And they're very reluctant to look at what they're doing that's not working. And sometimes I explain to people that it's like plumbing. You get the guy to come and he takes your dishwasher apart and he says, okay, that's not working, that's working, we have to adjust this thing. So much of that is with our thinking and emotions. We have to do that. We have to decide what's working and what needs to be changed.
Yeah, and I'm glad you raised the plumbing analogy, because you don't service your boiler. The heating packs up when it's a very cold January. You race through your phone book for the number of the plumber and you're thinking, I don't even know his name or a number, and you ask a friend because you never consult with him or whatever. Eventually you find someone who'll come out to you, and of course they come and have a look. When was it serviced last? And you tell them, I think it was a year ago. And then you look at the little cert on the boiler and it was 3 years ago, and you go, whoops. And then they tell you, I'm really sorry, it wasn't serviced properly, the whole thing is kaput. And you're in the shit now and it needs a new thing. So to take that analogy further, a bit like what you were saying with the doctor, and the doctor saying, well, people only come to me when they're at the bottom. When we watch our TV shows in the States, I think Dee is watching reruns of Sex and the City at the moment because there's a new version of it out and everything. And of course, they all seem to have their therapist. It seems to be normal kind of trade and a normal way of being in the States. Should we all have a therapist? Should we all have a kind of practice of checking in on a professional on a regular basis? Like, can you ever see a place where that might be the case?
I can, because some clients that I have, they would only maybe check in maybe once a month or once every couple of months. They're functioning fairly well, but they like to come in and just go over things and just see if anything that they could improve. And that is so true. And I came across a quotation, and I can't remember who said it, but he said, like, football teams have coaches and real life is a lot more complicated than football.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, some people don't agree with that. There's nothing more important than football. I suppose the big thing is we're very slow to ask for help. And that's what I'm saying about the washing machine, because I don't know how to fix the washing machine. I need to get a guy to come in. And I'm okay to do that. If I need my car serviced, I'd take somebody. And we have got some idea that we should be able to do everything ourselves and that we don't need help, or that it's a weakness to go and ask for help. So hopefully that will change. I think it is changing in the younger generation because they can see the benefit of having somebody there to speak to. And another thing that people do is they think they get all the answers online. There's a man told me that his daughter had diagnosed herself with some anxiety disorder. And I said, how did you know that? And he said, through Google, of course.
I heard a funny story about a couple who went into a garage. It was a guy in a dealership that told me this story. It must have been the beginning of the year and there was loads of people around and the guy was asking loads and loads of questions. It was clear that the salesperson was under pressure because there were other people waiting for him. And the wife turned around to him and said, listen, we better leave this man alone so we can go home and Google it. I thought it was brilliant. So she was getting her Dougal and her Google mixed up. But there you go.
Yes.
I know what you're saying about the importance of looking for help. And is there a difference between men and women when it comes to putting the hand up and saying, I think I'm under pressure, I need to talk to someone? I'll be honest with you, Noreen. If there was something troubling me and I was to say to my wife, listen, I'm feeling a bit off or I'm going to see someone, I think I'd nearly be inclined to say nothing.
Right. I was just going to say, it's good that you'd say to your wife, you're feeling a bit off.
Yeah, but I think I'd nearly be inclined to say nothing. You know, in my own time, I I'd probably go onto Mr. Google.
Yeah.
Maybe go onto the IACP website. I know you're an accredited member there.
Yes.
And look for a name. I'd 100% probably make my little phone call or my inquiry privately. I think I'd nearly be inclined to go off and do my little business, make my appointment with you, Noreen, and say nothing to anyone, including my wife.
Okay.
Is that just a 56-year-old man who's a typical man scenario?
Well, what I would say is the best thing is that you've actually done it, that you would do it, that you go. And what the problem is that men won't come for help. And we can see that 8 out of 10 suicides are male, 8 out of 10 prisoners are male. So if it's not depression, it's aggression, and there's nobody talking about that. And also, again, now what I said, we think we can solve it on our own, and we're slow to go for help. Now, the big plus that I see when men come in, they're very much inclined to do the work and get solutions. But the problem is get them to come in the door.
Okay.
And we're lucky now in that a lot of sports people are saying that they have mental health issues and that they've gone for help, and that it's been good. And like you said there about the Americans, everyone has their therapist, the same as having your dentist. And they're not a bit embarrassed to say that they have mental health issues. And even that gymnast there, that all the hoo-ha is about now, you know, she was very brave to come out and say she had to give up because of mental health issues.
Simone, is it Simone Biles? I'm not 100% sure. I think it's Simone Biles.
Because the person, and I say that to people, I said, okay, if you had a broken leg, you go for help. Everyone will be sympathetic to you and it would not be a big deal. Whereas with mental health, it is definitely stigma attached to it. People don't want to know. And I suppose that's a good thing about the employee assistance program, that the company does not know who's going for help. They just get statistics at the end of the year, say that so many people took up the service that's there.
Yeah. There must be a different dynamic around that work, because you obviously know when you're seeing this person that there's some issue that the employer has recognized and it's impacting on their work in some way.
No, that's not how it works at all,
Okay.
Greg. It's just the companies provide the service. This is what they do for the employee mental health. They sign up with a provider and the service is there. But they don't know who's going in. And it's obviously all confidential then. So, and that is what I worry of with a lot of people coming in through the employee assistance program. They're saying, oh, will it work? No, that I'm here. And I said, they won't, because the company is just giving them statistics at the end of the year to say how many.
Okay. So it's anonymous. It's like a facility.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So in a way, a company can sign up for an EAP program.
Yeah.
The number is available on the company website. And if you want to make an appointment, that's all done privately.
And I'm affiliated. Yeah, I'm affiliated then to the EAP provider. So they send me the clients then.
Okay.
And like that is, and of course, that's all of that is work related.
From your experience, Noreen, is work a big part of stress in 2022?
Oh, it is. And I suppose you've heard that about the big resignation now. I don't know about that. People are definitely rethinking their whole workplace. And I suppose a lot of the clients I work with are in the big multinationals, and they are under a lot of stress. And I think as well, another issue is because they're working from home now, there's no kind of boundary between work and home. It's not that they're going to work and they can shut the door. Well, I suppose a lot of the time that doesn't happen anyway when it's an American company where you're kind of on call until late in the evening.
In the good old days before the Industrial Revolution, when it was all workers in factories and you punched in and punched out, while it's all kind of fancier now and dressed up a little bit, it's still the same thing, isn't it?
Oh, it is, absolutely. And people used to talk about, being institutionalized if you were working, say, for the civil service or something. It's the same now. It's like they own you or something. And that's very hard. And I was reading something about that recently, where, it's not like And I'm saying that to people all the time. Okay, you're going in, you're giving them your services, whatever. They're paying you. It's a transaction. End of story. Whereas they're trying to make it now like, oh, we're all a big happy family here, and you'll stay for hours. And as you know, most families are toxic anyway. So you would want to be one of those.
There's a friend of ours, someone that we knew, is working in Google in Dublin, and she gave me the tour, and it's all beautiful. You know, there's the kind of rest areas and the bean bags and all that kind of thing. But there's a few different restaurants and coffee shops. And we went for lunch anyway when I went to visit her, and we went for lunch, and it's like, what kind of food would you like today? You're like, merciful Jesus. And so if you decided you fancied, you know, Chinese or whatever, you went there. But it wasn't like there was one Chinese dish for the day. There was even the menu within the Chinese. And then there was a coffee shop in the place that was just like a really cool coffee shop you go to anywhere. And it was totally and utterly miserable. And everything that went with it. And of course, you see them all marching out then at close of business. And of course, a lot of them wouldn't be marching out because they're the way they're constructed is that you can stay there for all hours and be fed and watered, but still continue working.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing, that it's nearly like they own you or something.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not good for people. Then they need division between work and home. They're entitled to these jobs. But what I think a lot of it is they're able to do the job. They like the money, they like the perks. It's just that they're absolutely overwhelmed with stress.
Yeah. And
my son has a saying for that. He calls it the overwhelmed overachiever. and he said they can see you coming, you know, that you want to work to prove yourself and all of that, but then there's a cost to it.
So Noreen, January. We've all had our break. I've a little analogy about sailing on a ship. When you get your holidays, you hop on the boat and you leave shore. And of course, all of your routine and work and life and all of that kind of life routine, I guess, you see it fading away in the background. And you get further away from shore. And there's a point during your holidays where you can't even see the shore anymore. And then you need to think about turning the boat around and coming back in. So here we are at the beginning of January. We've had our break and the boat is back in, and it's crank up the engines and we go again. And it's obviously a time for New Year's revolutions and resolutions. Is that a good time? Is it a good time to start contemplating change?
Well, some of the experts say that it's better off to wait till the end of January because it's so dark and miserable, and we like our hot bodies and whatever else, and staying warm and all that, and that it's too soon. And I'm a great believer in natural divisions of the year. Like we had the equinox, and we have all those divisions. Like in the old days, they were great for partying. You know, they'd have a party about every 6 weeks. You know, it was Samhain, it was Lunasa, it was Bealtaine, and there's some Irish guy, Anish Tachtanari, Began Lloyd, Bulkunshina, it's Taration of Fail of Rita, or Doig maybe Hiol, talking about both. And like what they're saying is that you shouldn't do anything until the 1st of February, because it's the start of spring and you have more energy for it and everything. And it's like, I suppose, because I get kind of very much that I want to go into hibernation this time of the year. And my girls got me this light, it's sad, I don't know what, you know, season affective disorder. And I'm only using it about a week, but I definitely say I'm a lot livelier because of it. So we kind of need to pay more attention to what's going on for ourselves. See if maybe all we need to do is just take it easy until the spring comes, and we'd have more energy then to go off.
Is that good advice, Noreen? And fight that instinct to transform yourself on the 1st of January and you're going to be a new person. Should you be good to yourself for the month of January?
I think so, yeah. Well, you should be good to yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I think you could start making plans and say, okay, maybe it's the start of February now. It'll be brighter and we can, you know, you can go out, get out, do more stuff. And you see as well, our brain is saying, oh, where am I going? Like, no comfort in this guy out in the cold walking or whatever.
Yeah.
Or swimming.
So would you be recommending that January is a time for being easy on yourself and doing a bit of planning for spring?
Yes, and like a lot of it, a huge amount of making changes is the planning part, and we don't give enough time to that, or not for anything. Even if you're only baking a cake, you have to plan, you have to get your stuff together, and that's what I would say. Before we can change what we're doing, we need to pay attention to what we're doing. So maybe just monitoring what you're doing and saying, okay, I need to change that now. I'm getting up too late or whatever. I might change that. And then making very small changes as well is a good thing, because our brain, as I said, doesn't like change. So we have to kind of fool it into thinking, well, this is only a small change. Now I'm getting up half an hour earlier. We'll be grand.
Yeah. So small changes are good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because there's a backlash, and they see that like people going to the gym.
Yeah.
After 6 weeks, you're saying, oh, that's too much now. I can't be bothered with that.
Yeah.
So we're creatures of habit, as you said earlier, and we don't like to change. And that's why change is so hard for us then. And as well, it might be an idea to look at how much stuff you've gone through in the past year, that we have to give ourselves a bit of leeway, I think.
What I find, even in a work context, a lot of the time, even having the conversations, that people have found it difficult coming back. And it probably is that combination of weather and probably missed a little bit of a break as well. It was nice to kind of jump off that treadmill for a while. But there's another gang then, and it's all action stations. Let's get to it. I get quite amused, actually, because at this time of the year in particular, we were talking about New Year's resolutions, and we'll get a lot of inquiries from companies who they've obviously been meaning to make a big change, and you'll get the phone calls in January. And sometimes you go, that's brilliant. And it's not like people just buy a quick product off us. It's like, you want to change, we'll write a plan and we'll come back to you in a week or so with the plan, whatever that might look like. And sometimes you never hear from them again. Yeah, we were all full of intentions that day when we called you, but we're grand now.
Yeah, and apparently that's what happens. Our brain, as soon as we make a decision, our brain starts trying to talk us out of it. You'll never manage that, or,
So it's the other part of your brain that's saying, yeah, sure, we're grand the way we are.
Yeah, absolutely. What's wrong with the way?
Yeah, we don't like that change part. Calm down.
Yeah. And like we have a lot of resistance to it as well. And then it's funny that when we have major changes, like maybe moving house or stuff like that, or moving job, we've no choice only to get on with it. So this is why I think it would be good if we could understand the kind of, like, there's 3 stages of transition. First of all, there's an ending of your previous life as we know it. And then you have to go through a kind of what I call the no man's land, where, because there's landmines and there's barbed wire and all that. And like one lady said to me, you don't know where the bullets are coming from. And you have to kind of negotiate that. And then you come out the other side. And because a lot of the time, they say that 6 months it takes to kind of get settled in a new job or whatever. But we don't realize that that's what's happening. And at the same time, if it's a good change, you're still going to have all that sort of sense of loss of what's gone, and then how to come to terms with your new life in this new situation. So that's what I was saying about the grief as well, that needs to be acknowledged, that this has happened and that it was an important thing. And we don't take the time to do that, to kind of just sit down. And that's why I'm saying the planning is good, because you can sit down and say, okay, maybe I could do that, and then I could do that. And because last year now, for example, I decided I wanted to go on the Camino, and I started training in January, the end of January. And I got this program. It was like walk a half marathon, and you had to walk 4 days a week, and then you increased it gradually as the weeks went on. And it was actually quite good. And I had a little spreadsheet so that I could mark in what I was doing. And then I went off on the Camino with my son in September. And survived it. No, I didn't say that I enjoyed it that much, but it was something I had decided to do. And obviously the planning was a huge amount. And even, to get the right socks and to get ourselves organized. So we can do that with anything really, that we have to plan it first.
What are the biggest hurdles to change, Noreen?
I think the biggest hurdles are probably similar to a lot of things. People are very resistant. First of all, they're afraid of failure. Then they're afraid of criticism. People will be saying, "Oh, well, what was wrong with you the way you were? Like, what are you, let's say, losing weight, for example?" And then we're always comparing to other people. We're comparing to people we think are better than ourselves. So like anything, I think the solution to that is to get help, is to ask people for help, because we can't know everything ourselves. I'm sure there's experts out there now on everything. So whatever the change you want to make, it's good to get some help with it. And part of that then would be that you have to check in with someone, and then you're more inclined to stick with it then.
I suppose in a way, when you check in with a therapist, when you check in with Noreen, it's an opportunity to be objective and have a conversation about yourself. And sometimes, just hearing it out loud can help you, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And when you hear yourself saying it aloud, you're going, "Oh my God, is that what's going on? Is that what I'm thinking of?" Having the room to tell your story as well. Unfortunately, I suppose our family and friends, they're probably tired of hearing us giving out about things and thinking, "We should go and talk to someone." I think the other huge part of it is that I have no agenda for the client. I'm impartial to what's going on. Whatever they do is their own decision. They know themselves what they'll be able to do. And I think they like that, the fact that I'm non-judgmental, that I'm nothing, only hearing their story. And I suppose it's being tuned into them as well. And I suppose I probably have loads of experience of that, having raised my children.
Yeah, I tell you, you learn a lot about those young creatures as they're growing up.
Don't you? Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of you changing, Noreen, and you kind of mentioned it briefly, the people around you, your friends, your other half, the children, the relatives, sometimes they mightn't want you to change at all, do they?
Absolutely, yeah. That is definitely true, that people are, I suppose, if, I don't know, do they feel undermined or something if you're changing? And this stops a lot of people from actually making changes. And again, I suppose if you're a people pleaser, you're more likely to kind of go along with what everybody else wants. And I think that was the big change, obviously, that I made going to college. I probably didn't see it so much as the children, because they would be great to encourage me, and definitely my friends as well.
Because when we talk about being happily pissed off, I guess part of the routine for you is how everyone else is.
Yes.
And if they start changing, that's turning your routine upside down, isn't it? Or possibly.
Yes, it is. And like, there is definitely a ripple effect when one person changes. And I see that a lot of the clients would say that, now that I've changed, everyone else is treating me better, because obviously I'm a bit more assertive or whatever. But they're changing as well, and they're more aware of how they're treating you.
And I guess in a way, even when it comes down to relationships, we're changing all of the time. And a lot of the times when you change, that's fine, they're complementary. But sometimes those changes will take you away from someone, or someone won't like them.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think it brings up other people's insecurities.
Yeah. So as long as part of your brain saying, "Why don't you go back to the way you were?" you can have someone else's brain telling you.
You could. You could, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not that easy to change at all. This is what we're saying, Noreen.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I suppose, change is everywhere, really, and it's trying to cope with it as well. And we're so resistant to it, even though it would be good for us. We will change when the pain of staying the same is bigger than the pain of change.
And unfortunately, is that when it comes to a crisis point?
Yeah, we're at rock bottom then.
Yeah. And you'd like to take control before you get to rock bottom. Are there any little warning signs that we could pay attention to? without hitting rock bottom that might have us picking up the phone, sending an email, going onto Google, contacting Noreen. That doesn't have to be a rock bottom one and a recommendation from the doctor. Any little things you'd say to people, it would be good?
Well, a lot of the time, the stress, I suppose, the stress, it shows up in a lot of different areas, and basically 4 areas, like our thinking, our emotional response, and our physical and behavior. And I think sometimes you see the physical more. So if you see, and this is very common now because of COVID, because we're so worried about what's going to happen, and the uncertainty is having a very bad effect on us. And then we don't have enough distractions to keep our minds off it, like going out meeting people and having a chat or going to a football match or whatever people used to do. So I would watch out maybe for change in appetite, headache, tension, which are normal physical responses to stress, or else mental things like preoccupation with COVID-19, angry outbursts, inability to rest, changes in exercise or eating patterns, even compulsive cleaning. I'm a great one for that when I'm stressed. My house is so clean, but I'm so stressed.
Sometimes is that kind of perfect on the outside?
Yeah, but it's a distraction as well. It's like when we don't have control over very much, we kind of overdo it then with what we have control over.
I want to ask you specifically about COVID and the working from home scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the conversations a year ago were all about trying to get everyone back into the workplace. And I know at that time I was thinking to myself, there's going to be a different problem here. And the problem basically is I've been commuting for half an hour into work, 3/4 of an hour. And I did that the whole time. And it was part of my happily pissed off life. It's just what you did to go to work. You sucked it up. The odd time you might get a pass and they'd let you work from home on a Friday. The roads are bad. There was snow. But we all did that because we know you had to. As part of life, as part of what you needed to do for work. Suddenly we were told, can you work from home, please? And it was inconvenient. You had a bad chair. But at this stage now, we've converted the room. We have the little nice home office and all that kind of stuff. We have our Zoom and we're conducting our life from our homes. Now when they want you back and you're thinking, hold on a second now, that half an hour, that 3/4 of an hour, that hour of a commute there and back, the petrol, the stress, the parking, the overhead, all of that kind of thing, you're not getting me back. And we've kind of avoided that big conversation because COVID has rattled on and it's all work from home. But those habits now are deeply ingrained in everyone. And we're not too far away from 2 years on. There's going to be a lot of big conversations, and the change that people will be asked to do are changes in reverse. Is that a whole series of explosions that are waiting to go off?
Well, again, it's how we cope with it as individuals. I think we've done very well with COVID, taking on all of this stuff. It is like really our brains are not made up for that at all. Like stress, disturbance, the uncertainty. And what has happened, I think, is it's kind of become an employees market now. So we have more doubt in how we're working. And then we have this big resignation that everybody's talking about. People are definitely reconsidering their whole career and work-life balance.
Yeah, we've seen for ourselves a different way, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely.
No, not everyone. I know in some circumstances, people had to continue doing that job, whatever that looked like.
I mean, but all the frontline workers, they went through it. I don't know how they survived.
Yeah, so you're going to continue doing that hard job under tough circumstances, wearing masks and all that kind of thing. We had an easy pass. So I see all of that kind of plus side to working from home and the stress of being asked to come back. We're kind of happy away picking on a hybrid model. We need to have a conversation at some point about the need for offices that we're paying rent in and everything else. But that's down the road a little bit. My question for you in a way is that it feels like a benefit and it feels like a good thing. And there's loads of tangible things that I can point to that makes it feel like it's good. Less commuting, the easier life, the time with the family, walking the dogs, less overhead. What are the negatives to me being at home Monday to Friday, going from my bedroom to the kitchen, making the breakfast, coming up the stairs, going into my box, going down the stairs to have my lunch, coming up the stairs to go again. And that's happening Monday to Friday. I go on Zoom. There's tangible benefits to it. What are the negatives to it, Noreen?
What do you think the negatives are?
Now you say you're being very bold. You're putting it back on me. I'm not sure. I'm enjoying all the benefits. But on the odd occasion in the last year and a half, and it's silly even having this conversation, but on the very odd occasion where we've physically met our colleagues, something wonderful happens.
Yeah.
You get energy from them. It's enjoyable meeting them. You know, that they're kind of work friends, colleagues. But something happens, you get an energy. And for everything that I'm saying to you about the not commuting and all of that kind of stuff, you come away from your day's work, I mean, drained.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, Greg, because that's like what it's about. I mean, we can see now we could all work from home, but we don't want to because we want the social aspect of the workplace where you go to the canteen or you go to the water cooler or whatever you have. And you see the other part of being on our own all the time, and it's so intense. Whereas at least we have little breaks where we could have a chat or even only 2 minutes with somebody passing how are you or whatever. We're not built for isolation. And that's a huge problem.
And my kind of challenge in a way, I can see all the tangible benefits from being at home. Mm-hmm. Some of the benefits to going into the workplace, a lot of them are kind of intangibles.
Absolutely.
And I can see this big dilemma.
You can't measure it and you can't monitor it and all this.
It's so tempting to think that you don't have to go back into that costly, time-consuming routine of traveling and all that kind of thing. But they're just hard things to compare.
Yeah. That is because we're social animals. And like that's the biggest problem we have with COVID is that we're not able to socialize, which is what we need. And it's very important for some people because they get really isolated and they won't come out of it now.
So my next question for you, you know, having set the scene like that, when we're working with a team, you know, we've 15 people in the Fusion team. Mm-hmm. And every Monday we come on a Zoom call together and, you know, we chat about the weekend. Every Friday at close of business, we come on a Zoom call. We'll interact with each other from a work point of view on other Zoom calls during the week. Mm-hmm. What do I need to be aware of with the team and that hidden damage that may be happening? Now, we check in with them all on a regular basis, but is there something that I need to be looking out for when it comes to those individuals? Like what's happening to each of them? I obviously feel it myself, but when you're conducting the orchestra mm-hmm. and you're watching all of the players, but when you're not seeing them regularly like that, even if that's just walking past them on the way to the loo or to the water cooler to make a coffee.
Absolutely, yeah. And do you check in with them as to how they're managing or if they have any issues or anything like that?
Yeah, we do.
But, and that is not related to the work.
Yeah, but you know, Noreen, you do, but now you have to do it as a very deliberate action.
Absolutely.
Whereas before,
I suppose it was automatic because you're seeing them, and you can probably gauge better as well when you see them.
So when you look at Noreen and she's sitting in, you know, and she's on a call, you might hear a conversation that something isn't right. You might pick up on a little bit of tension or sadness or quietness. Like we have members of our team that I've never met physically. And even picking up that things are good, bad, or indifferent. You just don't even know. This is where we are, Noreen, and there's a good chance everyone now was wrapping their arms around hybrid working and all this kind of stuff. It's a great way for the future. We're even employing people, like before it was a case of, well, it's a job in the Cork office or in the Dublin office. But no, it's grand. You can take on someone who's in Wexford, who's in Kilkenny. It doesn't really matter. But will that matter again, that they will be close and they can come to work and they can interact with their other colleagues on a regular basis? Do you see that being a thing? Or is this just the new life and another little thing that we need to wrap our heads around, and it'll become part of our everyday behaviours and challenges?
Well, I'd imagine a certain percentage will want to go back into the workplace, or maybe have the choice.
Yeah.
That they can go back in. And even if it was probably hybrid, is probably what will work best. As you said, we have our setup at home now, so we can work from there, or we can go in.
And genuinely, I'm not even sure how much damage. It feels like there's loads of benefits to it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure, on the other hand, is this damaging me?
And unfortunately, that only time will tell.
Yeah.
And as you said, intangible, if it's mental health, it's hard to know, because, and even it's in all parts of society, because I was talking to a lady who had an 8-month-old baby, and she said the first time she took her to the supermarket when we were released from COVID last year, the child got hysterical because she'd never seen so many people. She'd only seen the parents and the grandparents through the window, and now all of these people had materialized in front of her, and she couldn't handle it.
So, Noreen, I want to start wrapping up with a few questions for you. What's happiness to you, Noreen?
Oh, what's happiness to you? You know what's happiness to me, Greg? When I turn on the tap and water comes out.
This isn't a campaign for Irish water, Noreen.
No, but as I said, when I was a child, I had to lug buckets of water up the hill.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so water coming out. The other thing I want to ask you, and I know it's a biggie. What was your best day?
I think my best day was when I graduated from college, and my children. No, that wasn't the part, but the fact that I had the cap and gown, and I was 54 years of age, and we went to the Hayfield Manor for lunch. And I suppose it proves that, once you set your mind to something and put a plan in place, you can do it.
And Noreen, is that quite significant? Because it's really interesting what you've said about that. And because when you're a child, a teenager, it's all about passing exams and getting that first job and getting the qualification. But at a particular point in time in your career, you kind of knuckle down and that's it, and you're on that path. And there probably aren't too many occasions where, other than celebrating a big birthday or whatever, like the days of, getting a medal for winning the final in a match, and all, there's a good chance as you get older, all that is behind you. So those occasions probably are few and far between, are they? As we do get older, even for someone to say, well done, you really achieved something there. Yeah, sometimes I even think about, in a work context, there should even be a hug a boss day. Like, it's all about praising your team and well done and make sure they feel appreciated. And sometimes like, fuck me.
Where's my hug?
Where's my hug? No, it is interesting, isn't it, that you got that achievement and that's what you picked out as being a best day. I love that. I really love that. Mm-hmm. So my last question for you is, are you winning happy? And the thing that I kind of say to people, that analogy is, you might love playing football, but if you were out there all day kicking ball and there were no goalposts, it might seem a little bit pointless. Mm-hmm. So it's fantastic to have goalposts and to put the ball in the back of the net and to feel that sense of elation. So in the context of your life, Noreen, what's winning to you, and do you feel like you're winning happy?
I do, yes, I am winning happy. I think when I see my plans coming to fruition, for example, and a lot of it is to keep going at things, and if they don't work out, maybe try it a different way and that kind of thing. And definitely, I think working with people that can appreciate my help, that's a big thing. It gives me great satisfaction. and to see them making changes and improvements for themselves as well. And they're giving me all the credit. And usually I say to them, well, I'm only here asking the questions. You're doing all the work.
For all of your clients, is it important that they have goals and that have things that they aim for and that sense of achievement? Like you were talking about the day you qualified and you're in your gown, and that's a real kind of win happy moment, isn't it? Is it important that we don't feel like we're just on a treadmill and that there are things to aim for? Is that an important part of our well-being?
Definitely, yeah. Because as I say, a goal is a dream with a deadline. And it's like the fact that we have to plan it and decide, okay, in this month, whatever. So that's what attracted me to coaching, especially because the kind of explanation they gave was you have performance goals, but you have process goals as well, where you say, okay, January now I'll have this done. And then, so you're breaking it down to make it more manageable as well. And then the actual progress that you're making, that you're able to monitor it and you can see progress. And that is really good for people as well to say, okay, I mean, they're all saying, oh, you should enjoy the journey and everything else. Whereas when you can see the progress you're making, that's a huge thing. And that's why I get people to keep notes so that they can see how they're moving forward and how well they're doing. Because we're very dismissive of how well we're doing. But when it's actually written down and you're saying, okay, well, a month ago you were here and now you're here, and what do you think of that? And they're surprised that they're doing so well.
So I think what you're saying, Noreen, we should go easier on ourselves in January. Maybe use it as a planning month. It's a good idea to plan for the future and to set some goals for yourself.
Absolutely.
And enjoy the satisfaction of achieving them.
Mm-hmm.
We can easily settle into this being happily pissed off place, but we need to pay attention to some of those signs, those kind of stress signs. And you mentioned not sleeping and maybe having headaches and some physical ailments. There's nothing wrong with talking to someone.
True.
And that could be a best buddy or it could be a friend. I think it's good to get that. But if there are big warning signs, you should definitely be talking to a therapist.
Absolutely.
And beyond that, I suppose it's have a great year.
You too.
And continue to win happy.
Yes, and you too. And thank you so much for having me.
Noreen, thank you so much for coming on the Win Happy podcast. I think it felt like a therapy session and I was airing loads. But thank you for listening.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, well done. Thank you so much, Noreen. Thank you for listening to the Win Happy podcast, which has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free to send me an email at greg@fusion.ie. So until next time, take it easy.